tried to argue that this was transfer DNA. That theory is debunked when you combine that with the 3 cigarette butts that are found next to her body. Because the person who randomly decided to rape and kill her without leaving any of their own DNA wouldn't have had Michael White's 3 cigarette butts from that night. In 1987, nobody knew what the hell DNA was. So there was no way that they could make that argument that somebody was trying to frame him by placing his cigarette butts at the scene of the crime, because they would have had no way of knowing that DNA was even a technology that the police could have investigated at that time. In a case like this, obviously, one of our biggest hurdles is that we don't know exactly how this all went down.
Because this investigation has been complete, we are now in a position to say, on the 17th of March, 1987, St. Patrick's Day, Darlene decides, I'm going out tonight to Shuffles with 2 friends. We can say, with some degree of certainty, that when Mr. White sees her, he dances with her. Lord is a guy that remembers things, and he sees the picture of Michael White, and he identifies him. That's the guy with the beady eyes. Instantly. Oh, sure, 100%, that's him. Later, she doesn't have 2 men with her, she's alone. Either convinced her he would give her a ride or asked her for another drink. Who knows? We don't know. But she probably willingly went with him. And then somewhere along that line, something went very wrong. Michael White said during interrogation, she looks just like my ex-wife. Was that his attraction to her? Was that the foundation of his rage toward her? You could say that, you can't prove it, but it does make you wonder. We don't know the crime scene, location, but Mr. White loses control, does terrible things to her body. The bridle around her mouth from twisted coat hangers applies enough pressure to kill her from asphyxia. He then dumps her body next to a dumpster. One of the things that's surprising about that crime scene, 3 cigarettes consumed down to the filters. All 3 contain his DNA. It takes a few minutes to smoke a cigarette, yet he smoked 3 of them. What's he doing? Admiring his work? Calming down? Try to stop his panic? At the very moment that he was having those thoughts, that no one's ever going to know, there was a British research doctor at work on a DNA analysis tool and would allow people to identify Michael David White over 30 years later.
Nobody expected a quick verdict.
In this case, they deliberated for about 3 hours.
And the judge brought the jury in. Have you reached a verdict? She said on the first count of first-degree murder with deliberation, we, the jury, find him guilty.
Guilty.
And that's all we needed to hear.
Guilty.
It was like the world lifted off of our shoulders, a flood of emotions.
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
Michael White was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, but given Michael White's age, I don't think he's going to be able to make it to his parole.
3 decades later, an arrest was made, and a jury convicted Michael White of first-degree murder. Her parents say justice has been served.
The crime he committed was one of enormous violence, savage behavior, worst I've ever seen in a sex crime. And now Mr. White's going to pay for that, and he will die in a 6x9 concrete room where he belongs.
What is it that made you say yes to this interview?
A commitment to Darlene. Can't undo it, but you can only do what you can.
If you could kind of speak to her now, what is it that you would say?
I love you, baby girl. I always call her my baby girl. And she knows.
Mr. White didn't realize something that's quite significant. He believed that that moment in his life passed by, and he survived it. He got away with it. But there are always footsteps behind him.